Peace, y'all, and welcome to CHUCG TALK, your favorite payday show. My name is Brother Lee. This is Brother Eric, and I got some exciting news for y'all today. We are at episode 7, baby.
Yeah. Number of completions. 7. So
you
we gotta count from Brumman, right? Anyway.
Yeah. No, welcome, and welcome to CHUCG TALK. Y'all got paid today. For those who sent us lunch last week, thank you. But truth is, we didn't get no lunch from nobody.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
I
just want to let y'all know we feel the way about that, but it's okay. Next time we'll make it on tax day when you get your tax back. Of course, we got to start off with a joke of the day. I'm gonna let Brother Eric carry it from here. Please, no booze.
There will be no booze.
Yeah, in community, hold your thoughts. Last time y'all
My biggest fans.
Y'all said some stuff that wasn't so nice. So, take us away, Brother Eric.
I'm talking to y'all because I know Lee don't. Anyway, why was the restaurant owner stressed out?
He was stressed out because too many people to feed, not enough space for the people in the restaurant.
I'll give you one more try.
He was stressed out because...
Don't worry.
I got you.
Go ahead.
He was stressed out because he didn't get enough rest to go to the restaurant.
That would be good. No, he was stressed out because he had a full plate.
Like,
a full plate. The restaurant owner. All right, cool. I'll let y'all. Hey, yo, that was probably the best.
I'm gonna tell you, man, some of the baddest moments in your life, yo. Sometimes you just gotta laugh about, yo. All right, so I appreciate y'all.
Restaurant owners gonna appreciate that.
Yeah, and if you use that joke, make sure it gets copyright.
Yes.
So today we're gonna talk about white supremacy, and before we jump into it, I guess let's talk about. Of course, we want to talk about it first before we jump into our questions, and I guess what I'm asking is, Brother Eric, I want you to share, I guess, your definition of white supremacy, and if you will, an experience or something that you came across that it showed up in front of you.
Yeah. So actually, one of the things that so it's interesting that we have in this topic, right? Mm-hmm. Talking about the invisibility of white supremacy.
Oh,
right?
Yes, sir.
So I want to start with that, right? Yep. So white supremacy, and I really appreciate this topic because people often misunderstand.
Yeah.
And I want to say this before I give a definition, but white supremacy is not behavior, right? So somebody being white and doing something that disrespects or dishonors somebody is not typically what we consider racism.
Right.
A black person being called a nigger by white folks, or a black person being not allowed to go into it, like that's right. That is, if nothing else, bigotry.
Yeah.
But white supremacy is about the standardization.
There you go.
The standardization of white people, white institutions, whiteness, and European-centered thinking. It is the standardization of that. And it plays out through the locking out of non-white people from standardizing or normalizing our ways of being, doing, observing, you know what I'm saying, speaking. And so white supremacy, in so much, and especially when we talk about invisibility, invisibility of white supremacy is because it's standard. It's a part of what we do. In fact, in so much, white supremacy or so-called institutional racism and institutional oppression shows up so much that we don't even notice it. The fact that you got two black men speaking English with African ancestry, and I don't know about you, Lee, but I don't know no language other than English, that is white supremacy at play. And often that example in and of itself is a harder one to swallow for people.
Absolutely.
But when I talk about white supremacy, you're talking about the standardization over time of whiteness and all of what whiteness includes, in so much that whiteness gets to define what white is and define what other people are.
That's what I was about to go. Go ahead.
White people over time
ahead, man. I hear you, man.
have changed, right? Mm-hmm. If you were Italian 50 years ago, if you were Jewish 50 years ago, if you were Irish 50 years ago, you white today. Right? White supremacy is all encompassing in so much that it gets to define our reality without us doing it ourselves. And while we make concerted efforts to go against it, we're always fighting against the superstructure. So that's how what white supremacy is and how it plays out and how it's invisible, because like how I talk about it, it's a part of our backdrop, right? It's just like water is a part of a fish's backdrop. If you pull the fish out of water, you're gonna have water in its lungs, right? If you grow up in the space of white supremacy, you're going to perpetuate it, even if you're a black person, right? So I look forward to talking more about it, but that's my general understanding.
No, that's real. So, and I'll briefly give mine. But I'm very similar. I always seen white supremacy as this vehicle that outputs directly for white people and also for non-white people, but for the benefit of the vehicle, if that makes sense. So, in the lamest terms, it's gonna make what's good for white people, and it's gonna make what's not good for non-white people because it's beneficial to the overall engine that continuously works for the benefit of white people. And I think one of the strongest pieces of white supremacy that I've came across in life, or one of the strongest ways I should say I see it show up, and I'm only saying this because once I realized it, it was almost like it was weaved throughout life over and over and over and over again. If I had more time, I would put some more overs on that. But language. And it's one thing, right, for, like you said, for us to be African brothers up here speaking English, right? But the fact that we are normalized to the language, using an English language now, right? I think it trickles down to that second layer of language of how things get talked about. And I think over time, I realized the language in my social studies book. I realized the language in my college acceptance letters. I think I realized the language when when you're talking to law officials or policemen, if you will. All of that language is almost either social training for you, or it's for lack of better words, a trap. You know what I mean? And I say those two things because either that language is being pounded in or used to socially train you to understand and normalize this concept. You know what I mean? And this is one that we always talk about, but the whole food desert thing versus food apartheid, completely two different things. However, when we talk about food deserts, right, you talk about a place where there's no access to no food, and that's generally not what we're facing. But all in all, we've been taught to be like, man, it's the food desert. You know what I mean? Over and over again, folks have told us you live in the food desert. You live in the food desert, right? However, what's behind that is, you talk about food apartheid, where folks have intentionally and structurally placed grocery stores or access to grocery stores in specific areas based off your race and based off your class, then that doesn't sound like a food desert no more. And even with a food desert, the thing is, there's a blueprint somewhere, or there was a blueprint that was made, that somebody made some decisions that this area would be a food desert.
For us. And we weren't even, like your parents.
Where you going to see the food desert?
My parents weren't born by when that plan was in place. And so we're just rolling out that plan. So if you don't mind, I just want to add this piece of what you were saying, particularly around the food piece. White supremacy shows up in so much that not only in the language, but also the fact that food deserts would assume that or the language of food deserts, the Pollyanna language, that's what I like to say, the Kumbaya language, that food deserts are about grocery stores, and that in and of itself is a white supremacist concept, in that it assumes that the only way to get food is through a market, which means to support a corporation. Right, so like that is even so to be able to define my community, because we don't have a grocery store. But what if we had corner stores that's owned by us? What if we had little small house restaurants that's under the radar of the larger public or the mainstream? That in and of itself is white supremacy, and it's on its head, because it's about, like, again, like, you get to define for me what my damn reality is. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm sorry. That's you got me excited when you start talking about the food.
This is one of those topics, man, and I'm glad we get to talk about it. But that was really all I had, though. That was really all I had, and just sharing, like, that's how I've seen it show up for me since I was a kid, and it's just I've been on autopilot. you know what I mean, for a very long time. But the thing is, to be on autopilot, somebody got to teach you how to be on autopilot. Yeah. I ain't never come in this world.
You got to build a machine, right?
It has to be a machine to sit in on autopilot.
Yeah.
And that machine has to have an autopilot. Because if it didn't have an autopilot, that means you need to be intact all the time and understand what's going on at all levels of this thing, or this plane will crash, baby.
I really like that analogy, and I think especially when you talk about the autopilot piece, and you talked about it earlier, I really appreciate how you talked about it, positionality. Yeah, white supremacy keeps itself in place and keeps itself as needed because it socializes us to need it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What I always say is that white supremacy is the fountain of youth. It never gets old. It never gets old. It only evolves and it changes. Yeah. And so, like, I mean, again, speaking on the food piece, because we know CHUCG Talk is about food and all. The other thing is, it happens in these subtle ways, in so much that food is even defined for us.
Right.
We've been, and I know we talk about this off camera, but like, man, you think about certain things, right? I'll give a couple examples. A few years ago, I did these community conversations, and I was learning all of the ways in which people engaged in the food system in Cherry Hill and South Baltimore, right? And I was learning that people were doing what people are calling, but foraging and dumpster diving or food rescue. That white folks gave us this language of food rescue, but we've been doing that because you poor. Even also to say that environmentalists usually are white folks and all that. We talked about this all the time. You get finished drinking, something out of a jug or whatever, if it's milk or whatever, you use it again for water to take it to the basketball court. That's recycling.
That's real.
That's reusing,
that's
right?
No, that's recycling. No,
but again, but I'm saying still, it's recycling. So you got this thing where like white supremacy, it's like, yo, you taking my thing, whitewashing it, and then giving it back to me, right? For the purpose of keeping yourself at the top.
Brother, what's meal prep?
Meal prep ain't nothing but leftovers. We talk about this. God. You gave me that language. I was just talking about that yesterday. But look, and here's another thing too, right? For example, we walk over food all the time. We used to, remember they say don't play with your food?
I was teaching some brothers that this
morning. We used to play with dandelion, food, acorns, food.
Walking over life.
You feel me? People haven't taught us that's food, and they gave us language. This is a food desert. You don't have a grocery store, but we've been walking around food, fruits, mulberries,
absolutely,
grapes that grow naturally, right? But because somebody didn't put it in the store, and because they didn't tell me that that's what I should eat, I'm only supposed to eat these certain amount of crops, and if it's outside of that, it's weird, it's different,
right?
And then the last thing I'll say, we talk about language and all of that. Kale became a superfood. Collard greens became a superfood. Now white folks have it. Now they're available in our community. But kale and collards, because of how easy they grow, because of what our ancestors grew in their small garden plots, even during enslavement, that was our food. Yeah. That's the basis of what's so-called soul food.
That's real,
right? That's resiliency food that we got from the experience of white supremacy through enslavement. Yeah. Like, people have told us forever what is our food. In so much that, like you said, we on autopilot. Yeah. So in so much, and I swear I'm done on this, I often talk about this in lectures, we so messed up that when the physiological response of hunger comes up, I'm hungry, I don't think about going to my own backyard. I think about feeding, having somebody else feed me. That's white supremacy in place.
And if I want to, this is the last thing I'll add, and we'll jump into our questions. I no longer use the B word anymore. No, but this is what I'll add, and this is one thing I think is really important to highlight, is that like we talked about, we're on autopilot, right? And the thing is, it wouldn't be a problem if we could come off autopilot and, pick up where we left off, right? However, the thing is, the plane is constantly changing while we're on autopilot. So what you thought was before, you're against a system that's going to constantly throw new things at you, and it's going to constantly whitewash the language we used, and also just repackage things and deliver them to you in the same way, but with a different title and different colors and different looks, and tell you it's something better than it was before. Yes, sir. You know what I mean? So I say to say is that like folks might think the autopilot. Oh yeah, you're right. We need to come off autopilot. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to get out the plane. That makes sense, because that's not a plane we can control. Whoever's in that plane is going to be on autopilot. So
you bring about, man, this is a hot topic.
It is,
imperialism, and that's it. Maybe we'll talk about that another time.
That's real.
But that is the formulaic trajectory or the formula that imperialism uses, that it keeps changing. So whether you're in housing or food or entertainment, it's the same formula, right? Take, right?
Yeah.
And so when you talk about a part of taking and somebody taking, they gotta build the machine to be on autopilot so that you don't realize, oh damn, ain't nothing wrong with this. The sky is good, right? And it's like you don't know because it's so much a part about that. So anyway, I can talk about this at length, but I really appreciate this. This is strong.
That's real, man. So here we go. Let's jump into our questions. We're gonna dive right in. So the first question we got: what are some places that white supremacy is perpetuated and how? This is from Daniel. Okay. So who you or me? Who want to go first? Schools.
Ocean.
Hospital. Health. Hospitals. Clinics. All that good stuff. What else? Of course. Courthouses, political buildings, good grief, banks. They
don't know about your history.
Oh, banks. What else? I mean, it's so many places. I actually, a better question would have been, Daniel, to be honest, what does it? You know what I mean? I ain't gonna hold you. No, and I'm being real. And when you ask me how, it's the same thing we just talked about. And the crazy thing is, and I'm so happy we use the language autopilot, because I think that's really gonna allow us to go back and be like, damn, I was doing that the whole time. You know what I mean? And the honesty is, and I'll speak for myself, but even going back to education, right? Even going back to, I'm talking from middle school on up, you know what I mean? I didn't have I was given a mat. I was told I'm supposed to learn X, Y, Z, and those are the things I did. I didn't know why, I didn't know what for, I didn't know what use it would come. I want to be clear, I haven't used that social studies stuff to this day. But I think that's one of the ways where it's like you said, it's a take thing, right? And in order for it to take, you have to be engaged and in compliance with that white supremacy vehicle, and that's going to take some training.
Yes, sir.
And I think one of the first places we get it, one of the first places, exactly, undoing perfectly, And I think one of the first places we get that is where we spend 8 hours a day away from home with a bunch of group of people that looks like us in the same kind of different neighborhoods, with teachers that don't look like us sometimes. You know what I mean? And then granted, I won't say that that's all the time, because I've seen some amazing non-white teachers. And I'll be very clear, I've seen I've met and been fortunate enough to be connected to some amazing white professors and teachers as well. However, it's more so about perpetuating versus like what's best for specifically a person, right? So I use all those examples, talking about how it shows up in health, in the hospitals, and who gets what kind of not accolades, who gets what kind of or who gets called as a priority or necessity. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of different, man. I can go on for days, and I'm really like stuttering over just. God dang, it's a lot. So it shows up in a lot of different things, but I think one thing you're gonna realize, it show up in a lot of the same ways. And I'm gonna let Brother Eric jump in, I'm gonna leave it there. But I think what you'll see is the same. I think what you'll see is a system inside of all these different systems that are all congruent or parallel to each other, and that yield the same result. Because when you go into schools, you come out ready to go into that system, ready to go into that plane, we can say. When you go into the hospitals, you in that plane. You better know you in that plane. You know what I mean? Yeah. When you opening that bank account, you going in that plane. You know what I mean? So all these things are the autopilot, which are going to have those stipulations and circumstances going to tell you to survive or to be successful or to be effective in this system, in this vehicle. This is what you do. And don't look outside of this, because outside of this is how you are not successful in this system. So.
No, I know we have limited time, so we can go to the next one, but I'll say, to your point, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
All of our socializing institutions, including our family, the media, education, all the things you talked about, down to your church, your mosque, all the other faith institutions are teaching us how to either, as they use the language, assimilate, you know what I'm saying, or fight against, you know what I'm saying? These things, and so these are where white supremacy shows up. It's on your front door, as Thomas Sankara talked about. It's on your plate. He talked about imperialism, but it's everywhere.
Look no further.
And so I'll just say that I know we got limited.
Yeah, no, that's good. So we'll jump to the second question. How do we combat white supremacy? which is a great question. I'll let you go ahead. You take first on that.
I'll be short in saying that the one thing I really appreciate about this platform is that we get to kind of dip our toe into these conversations, but we don't get submerged in it. So we can have a further conversation.
Right, absolutely.
But I'll give a couple of things. So I think the first way to combat white supremacy is first to understand it, right? The Art of War, a great text that I think is important for all organizers to have. Sun Tzu talks about, one, understanding the terrain of your enemy or your own, right? So I think that it's important to, one, in order to combat white supremacy, we have to understand it. Sure. In so much that we have to even understand and be clear with one another and be clear with ourselves with how we perpetuate it. Because that's the other thing too. It's easy to say they. But one of the ways that I and you alluded to this, one of the ways that I perpetuate white supremacy is by perpetuating sexism. Sexism, heteropatriarchy, all social issues that we talk about that are coming out of that comes out of white supremacy. Right? That we should understand the origins, not just historically, but also how it shows up. But I would be remiss if I don't talk about the Papal Bull of 1493 that people should know about.
There you go.
Papal Bull, PAPALBULL of 1493. You should understand that is a piece of religious legislation from Spain, from the Roman Catholic Church, that essentially said to those who were part of the Roman Catholic Church that you have the right. What's going on? It's not recording?
No, it's recording. The flash you're looking at. Oh. You have the right. That's what you
So, Papal Bull of 1493 came out from the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church essentially gave the right to explore, to conquer, and to fix people of the land, right? And that there was their God-given, right. The whole idea of manifest destiny, that people deserve this land, the destruction of peoples and First Nations people in this country and on this land and land around the world, trading African bodies, the servitude of European peasants. All of that comes out of white supremacy, right? So we got to understand that, but then we got to understand what that means for today and here and now. And not go to the easy examples to say, well, Trump said he's going to build a wall. That's easy. Let's go to the stuff that we don't see. Again, that I got on a t-shirt and pants as an African person. That you know what I'm saying? That I eat certain foods. Dr. Sebi talked about some of these things, right? Yeah. We got to be able to understand and peel it back, because if we understand it like the art of war, then we can actually go at war and build strategy that actually get to the very root of it rather than standing at the surface. So I think that's the first way, and always we got to organize that, like Kwame Ture talked about.
No, I agree. And I don't have much to say, brother. I follow behind you and I stand in compliance with what you said. I do want to say what I appreciate about your answer is that it really lifts up the fact, or really clears up this idea that white supremacy is just racism. Right, and it like that's more so, like you said, bigotry or almost an individual thing, right? Choice, if you will. However, white supremacy is, like you said, an intentional vehicle that's really built for the mass. And the thing is, there's a place for everyone in it. Right? There's a place for everyone. Now, what it does for you, that will vary.
Absolutely.
However, but there's a space for you in it. There's always a space for you. So I just wanted to lift that up. I think that's amazing.
Can I just say something real quick? Something I forgot to say, right? When I often talk about racism and white supremacy, I talk about it clear. This is not an absolution of white people. You're not absolved of anything. But white supremacy dehumanizes all of us.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, it gives the illusion that white people are superhuman and that non-white people are inferior or subhuman. Either way, it dehumanizes, right? It gives more or less. And so, speaking to what you're saying, like, the thing is, white supremacy is not behavior. It's about a structure. And just like on a winning a championship team or World Cup team or whatever it might be, everybody on the team, meaning all white people, are afforded the privilege of being white. So in essence, all white people are white supremacists, right? You can look it up, you can check it, because you're on the winning team. No matter if you MVP or you never got in the game on the practice squad.
Yeah.
You got a ring. That's how white supremacy works. And it's not about your personal behaviors. I got black friends. I'm married to so and so.
Right.
It's about having white privilege within it. But again, being clear that if we're clear and objective about this, even as a black person, I perpetuate white supremacy.
Yeah.
I just don't have white privilege.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Those are two different things that we can really talk about and build it out. But again, I just want that to be clear that we must understand white supremacy to combat it, but we also need to be able to put some practical things in place to build strategy around it.
And I swear this is the last little piece I'm gonna say before I jump to our last question. But I do want to be clear, and this is my opinion. But I think one of the ways to stay invisible is by us not knowing who we are, right? Because I mean, like, I won't be mad about wearing a t-shirt and pants if I knew where I come from. We don't wear no t-shirt and pants. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna leave y'all with that.
Yeah.
And this is the last thing. Last question. We're gonna. So as a white person, and this is from Beth. As a white person, what can I do to ensure myself as an ally and ensure that I'm against white supremacy? That's a good question.
Can I start that?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, if you want to take it, that's cool. We only got a little bit of time left. So
what I would say is, first, search yourself. Undoing the impacts of living in a society and in a world that perpetuates white supremacy, historically and contemporarily, is that we all are part of it. We can't ignore it, like you talked about.
We gotta be,
And we can't intellectualize it. That's the other thing that I learned about white folks when I'm doing this work. If we intellectualize it, we'll never go against it. We have to recognize that it's deep spiritual work and emotional work that's got to be done as well.
Yes.
And so that's the one place I would start. And then I would, definitely there are anti-racism trainings and community organizing training where people can learn. In Baltimore, Racial Justice Action, BRJA, is one place to go to learn more. But I think as a white person, you got to organize what white people do to learn about white supremacy and undo
it. Yeah. No,
that's the short answer.
Yeah.
That's the very short answer.
No.
But we must, in general, divest in and of white supremacy in all ways, even in the ways that we don't know that we're doing it.
Right. No, I agree.
It's deep, yo.
I was about to say, man,
Oh my gosh.
this can we can. Yeah, I mean, if y'all want us to, we can put a little movie together. But yeah, so look, we running out of time, man. As much as we want to keep going, I do want y'all to make sure y'all tap in on August 7th. Your next payday, had that lunch because you're getting that money. Had that lunch. But yeah, send us questions, please. Follow us at CHUCG, at Black Yield on Instagram, at Black Yield on Twitter, at Black Yield Institute on Facebook. And our next topic for the next payday is going to be governance and accountability right here in community. So
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it too. Yeah. Hey, y'all be good and get some rest from my restaurant.
Peace.